crafters, and welcome back. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and today I've got the Spellbinders October card kit of the month. Now this one is called Oh What Fun, and as you may have seen already, all of the club kits for this month are pretty much Christmas themed, and this one is no different. Now I want to show you that along with the card kit, you can also get these add-ons. There's a sticker pack and there's also a die cut pack, and sometimes they are just supplemental, but in this case, I think they're actually necessary. So go ahead and add those on before your kits get shipped if you're already subscribed. And if you're new to the subscription, I highly recommend it because they work well with the kit, and for parts of it you're really going to need it, and I'll get into that as we get into the rest of the video here. Okay, so as I was explaining the add-ons, I did show you that you get the foam squares, the tape, the double-sided tape. You've got the dies, which I'll show you in a second in more depth. The beautiful white iridescent sequins. You've got a chipboard sticker pack, a stamp set. You've got some beautiful chipboard frames and some puffy stickers along with the 6x6-inch paper pack, which I'm showing you here. So this paper pack is like all the others. Of course, this one is Christmas themed. There are 20 designs and there are 2 sheets of each design. And I do notice that sometimes some of the packs give you an extra sheet here and there. So there's also that. And you can see all of the papers pretty much match the rest of the set. The color schemes match. You got a few different themes going on in there. You've got some sweet treats. You've got gingerbread men. You've got some snowy scenes and a lot of Christmas foliage, and it's just jam-packed with Christmas fun. Now, as for the cardstock colors, I'm showing you them all here. They all work well with the rest of the kit and the different colored papers. You get 9 plain cardstock pieces and 1 foil cardstock piece, and these are 8.5 by 11 in size. Now, for the dies, you can see you get a bunch of dies to make a Santa Claus face, Christmas tree with a bit of detail, and the Noel sentiment die. Now, for the die cuts, I've shown you this before. I have these butter tart trays. You could use any type of tray. You could even use the card kit box as it is, maybe cut it in half or just use one half of it, and you can use that to sort of dump out all of your die cuts, and it really helps for looking through at what you really want to use for each of your cards. It really helps me sort of sort through everything. And you can see this one here is the add-on pack, and it has a ton of sentiments, and this is why this pack I think is a must-have. Now, I just kind of wanted to walk you through my process. These are basically the packs for the die cuts, but I've used them to collect the die cuts that I want to use for specific card designs. So what I'll do is I'll go through the die cuts, pick one that I like the sentiment card here, and then I'll go through the paper pad to find a paper that works with it. Once I've got that, I'll then find maybe a sentiment from the die cuts, or I'll use the stamp set to stamp out a sentiment. I'll go back to the stickers, the chipboards, all the extra bits that come with the card kit, and I'll just work with those to kind of put an idea together for a card. Once I've done that, I kind of put everything, I lay it down, and then I'll take a picture of it on my phone, and then I'll gather it together and just put it in a separate envelope or something, and then I'll move on to my next design and do this for all of my designs in order to kind of have a planned out idea of the different cards that I want to make. So I also just showed you the embellishments I have on hand, which is always the last step in all of my cards. Now you can see here that I've got my phone and I've basically taken a picture of all of the different cards that I'm going to be making today. And this just helps me really plan everything out in my head and have everything together so I can just go ahead and make all those cards. So let's go ahead and get started with the first card now that I've gone over all of that. Now, this is the first card that we're going to be working on, and for this one, my main inspiration were those chipboard frames. So I grabbed 2 frames that I really liked, and then I went through my paper pad to find a paper that worked well with them, and I chose this one here. Now, all I have to do is grab that paper and put it onto my card base. So this is one of the A2 size card bases, and I am just going to place this on so that it covers the entire background. The other option is to cut it down to size so that it's a little bit smaller and creates a bit of a border. And I'll show you that in my next card. But for this one, it's pretty simple. Just stick on your paper of choice and then cut off all the overhanging bits. Now, I never waste my overhanging bits. I have a little plastic sleeve here, and I'm just going to put all of those extra little scrap pieces in there, and then I'll keep it in the back of my paper pad to use for future projects. And please go ahead and subscribe if you do like this video. Like and subscribe. If you want to see how I use those scraps to make a scrapbook layout, I will be posting that one soon as well. And so for that, you're going to have to hit the notification bell, and I'll notify you when I do post that. And I have that that scrapbook video that I do post. It's not always a video. Sometimes it's just an actual post. But I will also have like a reel or a video short for it that I post on YouTube as well. So there'll always be something. And I always make sure I do it for each of the card kits so that you can kind of see how to use it in a different way. Okay, so while I was talking about that, I went ahead and grabbed my 2 chipboard frames and I backed them with some cardstock. So this is the cardstock that comes with the kit. There was a light pink and a light blue that I used. And now I'm going to add my die cuts. So I did actually have to cut down that little candle just a little bit. Don't be afraid to do that to your die cuts to make them work for you. And I'll go ahead and attach that flat on the frame with some liquid glue. And then for the little house that I'm attaching, I'll use some a foam square just to give it a little bit of dimension because it's going to sit on the top, so that'll be okay. So I'll just go ahead and put that little house on the square frame. And then I can kind of decide how I want to put it on my card base here. So I could put it in the portrait orientation, or I could do landscape. Now, another way you could change this up is how you put your paper on the card base. So in my case, I ended up putting the stripes going horizontally. You could put them going vertically, like all those little things. Change up your card and make it look different. You could have even made the card maybe a slimline card and put those stripes on diagonally. And so in the end, I decided to go with the portrait orientation with those lines on the horizontal. And I've attached the frame with the candle. And now I'm just adding the frame with the house. And I do have to add a foam square to the back there because there's the extra dimension that the first frame creates. And I will just attach this together with some extra liquid glue. Now, I've also gone ahead and picked my 2 sentiment die cuts, and these ones I think are from the add-on. I think what they've done is they've kind of separated the sentiments from the images. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why I think that add-on is a must. It's not necessary because you do have the stamp set, but I really do like the die cut sentiment, so I would get it, and it doesn't cost that much more. And finally, to finish off the card, I used some teal opalescent embellishments that they don't come with the kit, but they are on the Spellbinder site. So for my next card, I'm making this cool gingerbread card with a snowy background, and this is, I guess, one of the other themes of the card. So, sorry, not the card kit. So I've gone ahead and grabbed all those little gingerbread men, a couple cupcakes, I've got the gingerbread house, and now I'll go ahead and choose the appropriate paper, which in this case is the snowy paper because I also have some snowy snowflake die cuts that I'm going to use on the background of this card as well. So I thought that all just went well together. And so for this card, I cut down the paper to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So this gives me a 1/8 of an inch border all around the edge on an A2 size card. And I've attached it in the landscape position. I'm going to kind of just arrange all of these die cuts because there are quite a few of them. Normally I would just kind of stick them all on, but I want to make sure they all fit nicely. And I'm just going to have these 2 little gingerbread men coming out from behind those cupcakes, kind of like the one that's sitting inside the mug there. They're all just having fun with all that sugary goodness. And now that I've got everything placed where I want, I'll just kind of pick up each piece bit by bit and then adhere it to the card. For the sentiment, I'm using some foam squares. That's giving it a bit of dimension. Now you'll notice that I'm not using the foam squares that come with the kit. And that is simply because I love the foam squares that come with the kit. They are pretty thick and they have such great dimension. I use them sparingly. So this is kind of my fun foam at home made foam squares that I use in excess. And then the Spellbinders foam I use very sparingly on basically cards where I really need to. And you'll find that the average foam square is not really as thick as these, and that's why I think these are really nice, and I kind of hold on to them for a while and use them as I see fit. So I've gone ahead and attached the main bits, the sentiment, the gingerbread house, and that cup. And then I've got the cupcakes and the gingerbread man. Now I'm adding the foam to the cupcake, and then I'm placing the gingerbread man behind it. So that foam is going to act to stick down the cupcake and part of the gingerbread man. So then all I have to do is add a bit of liquid glue behind the gingerbread man to have him fully adhere to the background. Now all I had left there to do was attach those two gold snowflakes, and now I'm just adding some clear gems. Now again, I use the Spellbinders gems sparingly, and these are just some nail art gems that I got off of Amazon, which I can use to my heart's content, because if you know me, you know I use a lot of embellishments. Now we're going to move on to this mail inspired card. So what really got my juices flowing with this one is this Santa mail post box. And with that, there was a small little envelope, which I thought was the cutest thing ever. So I realized I really had to use those two pieces. So to go with it, I grabbed all of these other pieces that have to do with writing to Santa or writing notes or things that are paper mail or paper things that you would kind of keep, tags, tickets, things like that. So again, I'm now going through my paper pad to pick a paper that works well with what I've got in terms of die cuts. And then I'm going to go ahead and for this one, I'm going to have a border on it again. So I cut it down a little bit smaller and I'll adhere it to my card base. This again is an A2 size card base. And now all I really have to do is add all those die cuts in kind of a collage fashion. So since that mailbox is the focal point, I've added it with a foam square, and I've done it on the in landscape style because I have all of these extra papers coming out from the sides and they're a little bit bigger, so I need space on the left and right side of that post box. Now I'm just going to add all of those papers all around in that collage fashion as I mentioned, and you'll notice that each of the cards that I make has a different design to it. Some of them kind of had like a grid pattern, some of them have a collage pattern, some of them, like the last one, is more of a scene, and it's really just based on how I feel like all these die cuts work together or what type of image I have in my mind. So even though I'm not really pointing out exactly, I'm using this type of layout or that type of layout, I hope that I am inspiring you in that way because they are different layouts. And, I think I just kind of go with it. I don't actually purposely think, okay, I'm going to do this kind of layout. I just put the die cuts together and see how they work. And that's really the fun of creating, right? Now, as you can see, I added an extra tag on the left side just to kind of balance out the all of those papers coming out of the mailbox because there was too much on the right side. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I really like having balance in my in the cards that I make because I have this thing for symmetry, and I know sometimes things aren't symmetrical, but if I have enough of something on one side and the other, I feel good. So I've gone ahead and added that Dear Santa chipboard piece and then the special delivery little banner die cut piece at the bottom there. And then I've also got these like gold foil asterisk pieces, and I will add that as well just as the embellishment, even though I'm still going to add gems as well. So moving on to the next card. For this one, I've got a sentiment piece for the center of my card, and then I'm just adding some die cuts around it. So I'm using the Essential Squares dies from Spellbinders, and I'm doing some partial die cutting to get the frame just around this sentiment piece exactly where I want it. It's a square and I want a rectangle. So I kind of just put it partway through on one side and then partway through on the other, matching up the die in between in order to do that partial die cutting. Now I'm going to my paper pad and I'm picking something that contrasts nicely with this, which is that beautiful deep red, which is going to go well with that green sentiment card. Now again, I'm just attaching this straight to that card base so that it covers the entire background. And then I have these die cut bits that I picked out. So I've got a snowman, a Christmas tree, which is kind of like the same design as the Christmas tree for the die cut. And I've also got some presents and a couple more snowflakes. So for the sentiment card, I'm actually going to prop that up with some fun foam. So I'm just going to cut out some craft foam to fit behind there, and I'll attach it to the middle of the card base. When I add foam to the back of pieces like this, I always like to use liquid glue, and I use an excess amount of it because for some reason, I don't know what it is. I feel like the sponge soaks up just a little bit of the glue, even though it probably doesn't. I don't know. It's just the way I think. Tell me if you're the same. But anyways, the liquid glue works well because you can move it around a little bit to get it to go exactly where you want. And I find using tape runner, sometimes it doesn't stick to the foam. So I've gone ahead and added the snowman and the tree kind of just on top of that center sentiment piece, and also the presents at the top. So basically the die cuts are framing your sentiment, and then I've also got the snowflakes that I'm sticking in behind the sentiment card, kind of coming out from the background. Now, as promised, I'll be using those embellishments I showed in the beginning on each one of these cards, and for this one, I'm using some gold metallic pearls. These ones are pink fresh, but Spellbinders also has some gold metallic pearls as well. Again, I would probably use those very sparingly. Now, for the next card, we're creating a row of Christmas trees in different colors, and these colors are a bit more non-traditional. I've got the actual Christmas tree die, the little streamers, and the star, and I'm using these 3 colors of cardstock to cut that out with. Now, I love how this non-traditional color palette works perfectly, and I have a paper that works well with it because that's just how these kits are made. Now I'll go ahead and cut out those little streamer bits and stars, and I'm using some holographic paper here. And I chose the holographic rather than using the gold because, as I mentioned, this is a more non-traditional color scheme, and I feel like the gold's a bit too classic. Now here's my secret weapon. This is Artist Tack Dry Adhesive, and what it is it basically turns your die cuts into stickers. So if you have a Xyron machine, this is basically the same thing, but without the machine. So all I do is I grab all my little die cuts, I make sure I've got all the little bits out of it, and I put it in between the release paper. One side is sticky, the other side is not. So make sure you're putting the back of your die cut onto the sticky portion. You put it in between, rub it down so that it picks up the stickiness of the dry adhesive, and then you pull it off and it's essentially a sticker. So here's where you can be more creative and make your items look or your trees look more unique. I've chosen to put those little garland bits on an angle. You could have one going at a down angle, one at an up angle and down. You could have them straight. All of those give different looks. So these are the final trees. You can see I've added the little stars, and now I just have to kind of put this together. Now I want to show you here that I'm going to work with a bigger card base, and this is why. Now when I put this onto an A2 size card base, you can see the trees pretty much fill the entire thing, and I want to have a bit of space around it and room to put the sentiment on without covering the trees up. So for this card, I'm going to be working with a 5 by 7 inch card base, and I cut 2 panels of pink cardstock, which is the pink cardstock that comes with the card kit, and this is basically just going to cover that extra 1.5 inches or so that my pattern paper is not going to be able to cover. So I actually have a reel in here somewhere on my YouTube channel where I show you how to work with 5 by 7 inch card bases. If you are familiar with the not the all aboard card kit, but the one that just came out this year, Santa Lane. So that one actually has some 5 by 7 inch card bases, which I was excited about, but I know that some people who don't make the larger card sizes were wondering, how do I use this with the 6 by 6 inch paper pad? So I showed you various ways how to use 2 papers or using it with cardstock or specialty paper to kind of make it work for you and cover the entire background so that it looks seamless. What I'll do is I will link in the top right corner that YouTube reel or video short for you to have a look at if you're interested for putting together 5 by 7 inch cards. So you can see here I've added the 2 pink panels. I put the pattern paper on top, and now I'm just adding these 2 bubblegum pink kind of glitter strips of cardstock, and I find adding a strip of glitter cardstock or specialty paper kind of just finishes off your look. It just gives it a nice professional type look, so I always do that. You don't have to though. So now I'm just looking through that die cut pack, which was the add-on, and that has all of those sentiments. I've grabbed something that works at the bottom of the card because, as I mentioned, I didn't want to cover up these trees. I've added some foam squares to all of the trees and taken the backings off. I like doing this because it makes it easier for me to place down these trees lightly and sort of make sure that they're all lined up. It does help that this pattern paper has writing on it in straight lines, so I can use that as a straight line guide to place these trees on nicely. And then I can kind of just place my banner underneath and press everything down nice and firm once I've got it where I want it. And again, I'm finishing this card off with some white AB gems, and they just have that nice iridescent shine that picks up the color of the card. Moving on to this next card, this one has like a mixed theme. We've got some Christmas characters and images along with those peppermints in the background. So I'm using the Fluted Classic Slimline dies, and what I'm going to do is do some partial die cutting to get a pink panel that's going to go in the center of this card. So again, for this card, I'm using a larger card base. This is 5x7 again. And I've done the partial die cutting, and because it was partial die cutting, I've got a little bit of an extra bit on the end there that I'm going to cut off with my my guillotine cutter. And this is just making sure that it has a uniform look so that it looks like I just used one die to cut this out. So now I'm also going to turn to that gold metallic cardstock and just cut a strip of that as well. And again, the reason why is to make my 6x6 inch paper work with this 5x7 inch card base. So in the last card, I kept the paper intact and added 2 strips on the top and bottom. For this one, I'm cutting my paper in half, and then I'm going to add a strip in the center. So I will add this striped diagonal paper on the top and bottom here, and I'm just kind of making sure they line up, but you really don't have to do that. I think this paper is pretty much made so that no matter which way you put it, the stripes kind of go in the same direction. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more extra adhesive in the center, and I will attach that gold strip, and I'm just eyeing it. I didn't measure anything. I find that you really don't notice if it's off just a little bit. And I'm adhering it to the center and then cutting off the overhanging bits. So just like before, I'm using some foam to prop up this this pink panel that we've cut to put in the center of this card. And I'm just using a couple pieces, using up some extra scraps. It doesn't have to necessarily be one continuous piece. Again, I'm adding some excess liquid glue at the back, and I am attaching it. And once I attach a larger panel like this, especially with liquid glue, I like to add an acrylic block or something heavy on top just to make sure that the glue has gotten to that tacky stage where it's really going to stick to the card base and not move around. So now I'm designing that card panel, and I'm just kind of placing all of those little peppermint swirls and the little square pieces. So that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to pick pieces that are square or rectangular to kind of go with the circles of the peppermints. So now I'm working with different geometrical shapes, and I'm just randomly placing them. There's no grid pattern here. And I'm using the same technique as before, where I basically use some foam adhesive, if it's a die cut, to attach the die cut on top of the circle, and then I will just add some liquid glue behind it. Now I'm turning to my other pieces from the kit. So I've got a chipboard candy cane, which I'm going to add, and then I'm also adding some of the square, I think they're stamp stickers, so they're in the shape of a stamp. So I'll just kind of use those to add on to the rest of the card. And as I said, everything works so well together. You're not even going to notice that one's a sticker and one's a die cut. Now, as I did this, I did make sure to kind of put together the top half, and then I put my sentiment in the center, and this just helped me break up the top and the bottom half so that I know how much space I have, so I can space everything out nicely. And then again, I added some gems to this to kind of just give it a bit of shine. So now for my 7th card, we're going to make this Christmas floral card is what I would call it, with those puffy stickers as a sentiment. Now you can see here's another theme for all those die cuts. You've got beautiful poinsettias. You've got them not only in red but pink, and you've got hollies, lots of berries, and some pine needles. And then there's also that cute little bird holding the berries, which I think works well with this as well. I've got this this paper from the paper pad, which is one of the ones I actually really love. I love all of the papers that have foiling on it. I mean, who doesn't like foil? I mean, maybe it doesn't take pictures so well, but I love foil in general, and in person it looks so nice. So anyways, I've cut that one down to size. I've got a bit of a border on my A2 size card base there, and now I'm just going to build up a poinsettia, a Christmas kind of floral border. So for the main bits, which would be the poinsettia and the holly, I'm kind of propping them up with foam. I'm adhering them with the little sprigs of berries and pine sticking out of the edge, and then I adhere the pines and the berry down with some liquid glue, just like I did the other ones. So now that I've got my border basically done, I'm going to go ahead and grab those puffy stickers, which also come in this nice set of colors that works with the card kit. And for the deck, in the deck the halls, the CK, the E, and the D are separate. And I think that's the most work you have to do. Now again, since this pattern paper has straight lines on it, I don't have to worry about lining this up too much. I've got the lines on the paper to work with. And that I did not plan, that just worked out. I think a lot of the papers in this set have straight lines on it, so they work perfectly for placing down sentiments like this. So the and the halls are one sticker, which works very well, so I don't have to put too many little pieces down and line them up. And for this card, I'm adding some peach opalescent sequins, which again are available on the Spellbinders site. And that card's pretty much done. So now we've got the final card, and this one is a shaker card. So I left this one for the very end because it's a little bit different, takes a little bit longer. I've got my square from the Essential Squares die set that I used earlier, and I'm doing partial die cutting again to cut a rectangle out of the center here. So we're going to have a 6-inch card, about by 5.5 inches. So it's going to be an awkward shape. You can always make your own envelope for this. Now I actually have a video where I do go over altering envelopes that you already have to make them work for you. I should probably make another video of that and post that. So I'll have that up sometime soon as well. So now that I have the rectangle cut out, I just kind of have to cut out my card base, which I said in this case it's 6 inches by 5.5. So because it's 5.5, I can use an entire piece of white cardstock that's 11 inches in length, fold that in half, and cut it down to 6 inches. Now all I have to do is add an acetate sheet to that frame. So I'm using the double-sided adhesive that comes with the card kit. I'm so used to using the tape runner, I forget to use this. So I remembered this time, so I went ahead and used it, and it's very sticky. So it's a pretty good adhesive to use compared to other adhesives that you might have. And I'll go ahead and attach my acetate, make sure it's down nice and well so that when I do add my sequins, they're not going to come out. And now I'm going to add my foam. So what I did was I took some 3M foam tape. I doubled it up so that I've got a good thickness for my sequins to move around inside. And then I cut it in half because I don't need it as thick as I have it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that tape to create a frame around the acetate frame. And that's just basically what's going to hold all my sequins in place and stop them from falling out of the card. Now the last piece that I add, I do try to make it just a tiny bit bigger and push it in so that I make sure everything is closed completely. That way, if you do have to cut a little bit off, it's okay. Now when I put this together, I made a little bit of a boo-boo, which I'll get to in a second. I took off 3 of the release papers and left one still attached so that I've got like a little kind of envelope or a slit here, so I can kind of just stick my sequins in the side there pretty easily. Now I realized that I didn't add that extra rectangle in the center with that pattern paper, so what I did was I add the glue, I kind of hold it to the acetate piece so that the sticky bit's not going to touch everything, get it in place, and then I stick it down. So I probably should have done that before I attached the frame. Now I've got this little scoopula. You probably saw that in science class. Now my day job is in the science field, so I have a lot of science things kind of lying around my house. So a scoopula is one of them. There are other things you can use. Like for example, I have this embellishment tray that you can use to put your embellishments on and kind of scoop it in. You could use a spoon. I know there's other contraptions and tools that you can use to get your embellishments in. But once it's in, I like doing it this way because I can kind of hold down the bottom and shake it around and just kind of make sure I've got enough in there and it works well. Then once I'm done, I take my tweezers, which help to kind of take the release paper off that last piece of foam and adhere it, and voila, my shaker card is put together. Now, I'm sorry I lost some footage, and that was where I kind of put together all of these little houses, the trees, and the little car with the tree. So I just kind of adhered some of those flat onto the acetate and some with some foam. I'm adding my sentiment here, which is part of the add-on die cut, and then I've also got the chipboard Mary that's going to go for the Merry Christmas. And then I thought, I kind of needed something on the bottom left, or sorry, the bottom right. As I mentioned, I like things to kind of balance out. So since that Mary was sticking out on the top left, I had to add a sub-sentiment on the bottom right, which was that sticker sentiment. And then I've added some metallic gold pearls. So these are all of the cards that I've created for you today. I actually have a few more ideas, which I'll post in probably another post, maybe not so much a video, but I'll have that ready for you sometime soon in the next couple of weeks. I hope that you've been inspired by this video. You've got some few extra ideas or different techniques to put things together. If you like my video, don't forget to give me a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to check out my blog, which is linked in the description below. It has all of the products used here today, along with a little bit more of a description for everything. So I hope that you've enjoyed my video, you've had a great time watching, and definitely I hope to see you guys again next time. Bye!